The whole world is on your shoulders. Your German practical driving exam is coming up. You're excited, you're nervous. You really want to get your hands on that brand new shiny German driver's license, which is one of the best driver's license on planet Earth. And I can guarantee you, after watching this video, you're going to go into your exam very confident and highly likely to succeed and pass that exam to get your driver's license finally. So let's just jump right in and let me give you the tips on how to pass this exam. So step number 1, stay calm. This is one of the most important steps actually. I know it's easy said than done. And by the way, this video might be a little long, but you want to stick through the video because I will give you all the tips on how you can pass this exam. So staying calm is very important, wearing comfortable clothing and the same shoe that you were wearing with your German driving teacher at your practical driving lessons. Because if you suddenly change your shoe, the clutch, the brakes, the acceleration pedal might feel a little different, might feel a little softer, might feel a little harder just because you changed your shoe. And that could cause distraction. And we don't want any distractions in your exam. So make sure that you wear comfortable clothing. Drink some water before the exam. I don't suggest drinking any sort of soda or any sort of energy drink or something like that, because that might make you too excited and you might have this adrenaline and you don't want that. So just drink plain water. That's what I suggest. And think of it as another practical driving lesson. Don't think of it as a big exam that's coming up. Of course, you paid a lot, you've been through a lot, and of course, you did a lot of grinding in order to get your driver's license. But if you make this exam day a big deal that, oh, my exam is coming up and this is a huge deal and I have to think of it as it's a big day and something like that, you might get too excited and you don't want that. You should just think of it as another practical driving lesson and you should just go there and do your best. Like whatever you've learned in the theory, in your practical driving lessons, just go out there, do your best, and I'm pretty sure you're going to be as calm as you could be. Let me say it like this. So this is the step number 1, very important. Step number 2, be ready for the first 2 to 3 questions that the examiner is going to ask you. The examiner is actually going to ask you some questions about your car. This could be that they might ask the depth of your tire that you need to have, for example, in the summertime. It could be that he says, turn on the hazard lights. It could be that he says, turn on the high beam light or the low beam light or something like that. So there will be some questions about that. Of course, you're going to learn these questions with your driving teacher. So hopefully you would remember what you have to say. And remember that these questions are going to be in German. They are not going to be in English. So there are particular keywords in German language that you would need to know. Just let me know if you want me to make a video about this specific topic, because these first 2-3 questions, of course, if you already know what you have to say, you would go in there even more confident. Because, of course, the examiner will ask you 2-3 questions, but there are, I guess, 15 to 20 questions about your car, in which 2-3 questions he will ask you. So just let me know if it helps. I can make a specific video about just this topic, about these 2-3 questions that they're going to ask you. But like I said, it's going to be about lights, hazard light and stuff like that. But I can make a video on it with German subtitles and everything, all of that. So answer them best to your knowledge and you're good to go. If you answered, let's say, something a little wrong here and there, that's not the end of the world. You shouldn't worry that, oh, my exam is over. No, you will be good to go. Don't worry about it. So just stay positive and concentrate. Step number 3, drive rather a bit slow than fast. What I mean by that, in Germany, you have 30 zone, you have 50 speed limit areas, 60, 70, 80, 100, 130, and so on. The Autobahn, you can even speed up to whatever you want to speed up to. The recommended speed on the Autobahn is still 130, by the way. So what I mean by all of this is that let's say if you're confused about the speed limit, let's say you're inside a city. Inside a city is normally 50, and inside complete residential areas, it's usually 30. So let's say you're not sure if you're inside a residential area or just a main road or something. That could potentially happen. So rather than driving 50, I would suggest to drive 30, because it could be that you're confused that, oh, is it a 50 zone? Is it a 30 zone? Should I drive 40 maybe and stuff? Just drive 30, because you have less chances to fail if you drive a little slow than if you drive faster. If you just speed up 50 and it was a 30 zone, your examiner will be like, stop the car, you failed the exam. But if you're driving 30, let's say, in a 50 area, it could be that there are cars anyways, and you're not able to drive 50 anyways. So it could be that you have a chance to still pass the exam. Don't get me wrong, it could still happen that if you're driving 30 without any cars behind you or in front of you in a 50 zone for about a minute, your examiner might be like, you were driving too slow, you failed the exam. So that could potentially also happen. But yeah, just make sure that you know what speed limit you're in. If you're confused, I suggest to drive a little slow than fast. So that is something very important tip. So step number 4, check shoulder view and mirrors. This is something extremely important. Let's say you're turning right after a traffic light. So just make sure, don't just like start driving and turn right without looking mirror and shoulder view, because sometimes when you check your shoulder view and you can see through the glass of through the window of your car of behind door, let's say, sometimes there is another car or a bicycle or a pedestrian that's hidden there sneakily trying to overtake you or something like that. So make sure you check your shoulder view. That's clear. After that, check the mirror. So in case obviously we're turning right, you're going to check the right hand side mirror. So everything looks good, just turn right and that should be good. And when joining the Autobahn, that is also very important that you check your shoulder view and mirrors. I've already made a specific video about Autobahn. So in that I explain all of this. So what you have to do, obviously, when you join the Autobahn from acceleration lane, check your shoulder view, check the mirror view, and when lane changing, do the same also. Step number 5, the right of way rules. Right before left needs to be followed for sure. So make sure when there's an unmarked junction, when you're at a residential area inside a city, there is going to be right before left valid. Usually when you're inside a city and you're on the main road, you will see priority signs or give way signs. And once you see those signs, then right before left doesn't matter. But in case you're inside a residential area, most of residential area in Germany will have a right before left, especially 30 zone. 30 zones will always have right before left. So make sure when there's a bicycle or a car coming from the right hand side, you give them priority. Just think of it as you have to give them way. So yeah, just make sure that the cars and the bicycles that are coming from the right hand side, you give them priority. That is extremely important. Right before left is one of the main rules in Germany. I have, by the way, also made a video about right before left. You can check that out for an in-depth on how to follow the right before left rule. So yeah, watch out for these priority and give way signs. Like I said, if you're on a main road with 50 speed limit, let's say, so make sure to look out for these priority signs, because if you have this priority sign, then that means you have priority. You don't have to follow the right before left. So this is also very important. So another extremely important step of the right of way rules is that, let's say you need to turn and somebody else needs to come in straight, then they have priority. So turning lanes don't have priority usually. And why I say usually is because sometimes you will see a traffic sign with an arrow instead of a circle. So if there's an arrow, that means you have priority. Then you can just go out there and do the turning lane, and the others don't have priority, you have priority, you're good to go. Prepare for the special 2 to 3 tasks. That is also something extremely important that is going to happen in your exam. The examiner will ask you or might ask you to return back to the way you were coming from. So let's say it's a word actually said umkehren. So that means to return to wherever we were going. So when the examiner, he or she says that, that doesn't mean that you straight away like make a turn. No, you have to find a place to turn. Usually roundabouts are a great place to do that, because let's say you're coming from exit 1, you can just like drive through the whole roundabout and come back through the same place that you're coming from. So then you go back to the place that you need to go back to. And you shouldn't do this return of way in by stopping at people's private garages, because that's a mistake that might lead you to not pass the exam. Sometimes people do that. They just go inside private houses and go to their car porch and then just make a turn and go back. You shouldn't do that. You should make sure to avoid doing that. Roundabouts are a great place. You could also do this at a grocery place, parking place. So just go to their parking, make a turn, and go back to the place that you were coming from. Of course, this returning to the way thing, it will be taught to you by your teacher. So make sure you learn that in your private lessons. And emergency braking, examiner might ask you to do an emergency braking. This will also be taught to you by your teacher, how exactly to do that. When you're doing an emergency braking, they don't expect you to just brake like hard. They want you to go all in, extreme brake. They want you to put your feet like onto the clutch and brake straight away, because obviously if you do just the brake and don't put your feet on the clutch, your car will turn off and will stall. So you shouldn't do that. Just 1 foot on the clutch, 1 foot on the brake, and then just bam, like push those two like you're trying to save someone's life. That is emergency braking. And of course, when your examiner will ask you to do such thing, it will be a 30 zone, and it will be an area which there won't be any cars around you. So don't worry about that. You're not going to cause any harm to someone. You just have to boom, like do an emergency braking as hard as possible. And he might also ask you to do parallel parking or reverse parking. Reverse parking could be at a grocery place, parking place, or any other parking place that they find. And parallel parking is that when you're parking on the side. So in Germany, it's very normal to do parallel parking. This will also be taught to you by your teachers. So you need to do correct parallel parking, correct reverse or front parking. Just totally depends. Just make sure you've learned the parking in your practical lessons as good as possible, because this is a big area which in many people don't practice enough. But parking, you need to practice how to park. Reverse parking, front parking, parallel parking, these are all very important. So make sure you give this topic a good amount of time and learn that properly. Tip number 7, use the signals. Every time you turn, use the indication. That's what I would do. That's what I would suggest. So if you're turning, let's say, and you're not sure that you should use an indication or not, using indication extra wouldn't harm you. So I'm just going to say it like that. So use the indication as much as you need to, as much as you think you need to. Of course, don't use it so much. Don't use it like you're going straight ahead and you're just using the indication. Of course, that doesn't make any sense. Also, don't use the indication too early, like not like you want to turn right, let's say 3 streets after, and you're already like indicating to the right hand side, because people might think, okay, you're going to turn right now. You're going to turn right now, and they're going to start to think, okay, the indication to the right hand side is on since a while, but the driver is not turning right. Why? So yeah, don't do that. But definitely don't use the signal too late. That is worse than using it earlier. So make sure you don't just like while you're turning, you start to indicate. People need to know behind you your actions. So use it at the right time. That is important. Time it correctly. Now, stalling doesn't mean you fail the exam. Many people, the car turns off and they think, oh shit, okay, second time turned off, and they would be like so nervous, and they might think, okay, we failed the exam, this is over. No, that's not going to happen. Don't worry about that. If your car stalls, if it turned off, just breathe, just relax. Obviously, don't start to drink coffee or something and 5 minutes you're waiting, but just just breathe in, just relax, and after a second or two, turn the car back on. When it's turned on properly, then when you're hitting the road again, like let's say when you're hitting the acceleration pedal specifically again, don't just start driving without looking into your mirrors and your shoulder view. Just make sure, look around, everything is okay, and then drive. Could be that somebody is trying to overtake you while you were stalling because they were impatient. So make sure that you look before you drive. Step number 9, speed limits and traffic sign. So very important. Germany, you have so many traffic signs and you need to learn them all. And you will learn them all in your theory exam. You will also learn all of these traffic signs in your practical driving lesson. So just make sure to memorize and you know which traffic sign means what and act accordingly. Let's say you see a priority sign, then don't stop and start to give right before left rule. Don't try to implement that when you see that. Let's say there's a give way sign, then don't just rush in and drive through it and ignore it. Let's say there's a stop sign, then you need to stop. Stop means you need to stop. So don't be like, okay, I'm gonna get slow at the stop sign and pass through slowly so everything is okay. Nope. It's a stop sign. Stop for 3 seconds and then drive ahead, regardless if there's a car or not. And yeah, other traffic signs, whatever traffic sign there is, just make sure to act properly on the traffic sign. And like I said, speed limit. So in German cities, the usual speed limit is 50. And residential areas have a 30 speed limits and there are 30 zones. 30 zones will always have right before left rule. And like I said, like I previously mentioned, and just make sure to look out for the speed signs. Sometimes it might say 30, like not 30 zone, but rather just a 30 speed limit because there was construction site or something. And sometimes it will say 50. Usually it's 50 in the city areas. And these priority signs, and of course you will see all of that. And then there's this countryside, these country roads in Germany, and that has a normal speed limit of 100. Now it could be that when you go there it says 70, so make sure you don't do like, okay, country roads have 100, I'm going to drive 100. No, if it says 70, drive 70. But if you haven't seen any speed limit signs and you know that it's a country road, there's a specific sign which says city is like gone. So I will put that sign on the video right now. You will see it. Once you see this sign with the red line that city is gone, normally it's going to be 100. So just drive 100 unless you see a traffic sign saying 70, 80 or elsewise. Yeah. And then there's the highway, the Autobahn, the famous Autobahn. And on the Autobahn, don't think, like some people think that Autobahn has no speed limit, which is true for 60 to 70% of the Autobahn. There is still 30 to 40% which has a speed limit. It could be because of a construction site or something else. It could be 80, 100, 120, even 60 sometimes as slow as that. So just make sure to look out for that when you're joining the Autobahn and you're speeding up and you see no signs are there. Of course, it would still be no speed limit. So make sure to not drive more than 130 in your exam still. Although the speed limit is like, there's no speed limit, but still 130 is the recommended speed limit. So just act on that. And if you see a speed sign, then follow that. Step number 10, prepare for the Autobahn. So this is extremely important as well. Just before we go into this topic, let me tell you, I have made a video on Autobahn specifically because this is one of the biggest tasks in your exam that you're going to have, like the biggest, literally, because that is where you need to drive fast and follow so many rules that you sometimes get confused. I've made a video on it. Go check that out. It's going to clear some confusion, but let's continue with the video here for now. So you need to prepare for the Autobahn. You need to enter and exit properly. So by properly, I mean when you're on the acceleration lane, make sure you accelerate properly, but don't speed so much that only to find out that when you enter the Autobahn, that the speed limit on the Autobahn is 80. Yeah. But you also don't want to be slow on the acceleration lane. I mean, it's self-explanatory. Yeah. It says acceleration lane, meaning you need to drive fast. So just drive fast, and when joining the Autobahn, make sure your indication is on, make sure you do a shoulder view, make sure you check the mirrors, and then join. Because there could be a car coming like right on your left hand side. There's a car just trying to cut you, and they have priority. Remember, on the acceleration lane, you don't have priority. The cars that are driving on the Autobahn, they have priority. So you kind of have to basically give them way, yeah? So not kind of, actually you have to give them way on the acceleration lane when you're joining. So make sure you look out for the other cars. Usually you will get the feel that, okay, I can enter now, and or I can enter earlier or later. But obviously all of this will be taught to you by your driving teacher, and you can check my video out for the Autobahn and you will know a little better on this. And when you're exiting, you will see this 300-meter sign that in 300 meters your exit is about to come up. So at that 300-meter traffic sign, you need to turn on your indication on to the right hand side, because exit is always to the right hand side on the Autobahn. So just exit, stay safe and drive safe on the Autobahn. So when you are on the Autobahn, stay on the right hand side as much as possible. Of course, if you want to overtake a very slow truck or any other vehicle that's driving pretty slow, you can overtake them, no problem. Again, shoulder view, mirrors, indication, do that, go into the middle lane, go into the left hand lane, overtake, and then when you have done your overtaking maneuver, come back to the right hand space. So make sure you follow that. And yeah, overtaking only from the left hand side. Do not overtake from the right hand side. Don't go onto the shoulder of the Autobahn trying to cut someone and overtake. Don't overtake from the right lane. Just don't do that. That's not allowed. If you want to overtake, you have to go onto the left hand side or into the middle lane, overtake, and then come back to the right hand side. And then look out for traffic signs, because on the Autobahn you could see a traffic sign saying that the speed limit is about to be 60 in half kilometer, or any other traffic sign. It could be like construction site is coming up. So many other traffic signs could just appear. So make sure you look out for these traffic signs. So these were the 10 steps. And if you follow all these 10 steps, I can guarantee you that you are much more likely to succeed and pass your driver's test. So best of luck for your exam, and I wish you pass this exam and you get your German driver's license finally.